The most common mistakes when becoming vegetarian. I have a new camera lens and new lighting, so I hope that you like it. Some time ago, I made a video on how to become vegetarian and like my best tips for becoming vegetarian for beginners that you can check it out right here or in the description. But you all really seem to enjoy that video, so I thought that I would create a new one that focused on all of the mistakes that you shouldn't make when transitioning into a vegetarian diet or becoming vegetarian. These tips can be sorted into two categories. The first one that we're gonna go over is not preparing well enough, and the second one is being too extreme. We're gonna start by addressing the mistakes that you make if you don't prepare yourself well enough for becoming vegetarian. The first one would be neglecting certain nutrients. The two main ones that come to mind are vitamin B12 and omega-3s, because both of these are more prevalent in animal foods. You can get B12 from animal products that are vegetarian, like eggs and dairy, but if you are not eating a lot of these, or if you're like completely vegan and not eating any, then make sure that you are supplementing, and that is like very important, because if you're not getting enough B12, you can have a lot of like neurological problems. And omega-3s as well, they are in salmon mainly, and like fatty fish, so make sure that you are eating things like flax seeds or chia seeds have omega-3s, and like walnuts, things like that, like certain nuts. And you can also take a supplement if you feel like you are not getting enough. You can take like algae-based supplements, because a lot of omega-3 supplements are made with like fish oil, so don't take that, but you can definitely find an omega-3 supplement that is vegetarian if you feel like you are not getting enough, because again, omega-3s are important for your brain health and like lowering inflammation levels in general. The second thing you also need to watch out for is simply not eating enough, because usually plant foods have a lower calorie density than animal foods, and it's very easy to just take the meat out of your diet and not try to really replace it with anything, and to end up not eating enough calories. So it's a good idea to increase the volume of foods that you consume in order to get adequate calorie consumption, and also to make sure that you have enough protein sources in your meal as well, and we're going to talk about that. Another mistake I see commonly made is neglecting your own personal motivations to becoming vegetarian. And I see this for a lot of people. They think that it's like a trend becoming vegetarian or vegan, or they just kind of hop on it because like their friends are doing it and all of that. And that is the biggest recipe for failure. If you're not actually convinced of why you are becoming vegetarian, you are going to see way more like downsides than upsides, and it's not going to last very long. So make sure that you know why you're doing it, because while being vegetarian is not that hard, there are definitely things that you have to be more careful of or plan around. And if you are not properly motivated, then you're not going to be able to do that. Another mistake that I noticed a lot of new vegetarians make is that they just lack diversity in their food intake. And that's normal, because if you've been used to eating a certain way, like with meat and animal products your entire life, then it can be hard to make meals that are like interesting to you and appealing to you that are vegetarian. So what I see a lot is people making like really basic meals, just like pasta or like fries and veggies and like rice and beans, things like that, which are all good options. But I think that you should take vegetarianism as an opportunity to try out a bunch of different foods that you otherwise probably wouldn't have tried, like tofu, for instance. Make sure that you're using a ton of herbs and spices, and that you're testing out a bunch of different flavors, different grains. Don't stick to the ones that you already know. Make sure that you learn new recipes, and that you explore new techniques, and that you get just really curious about all of this like vegetarian aspect. And if you do that, then it's going to be something positive. It's going to be like a positive change for you and your way of eating. But if you're just removing things from your diet and not really switching it up, then you're likely not going to stick with it for a long time, because you're going to be bored and you're not going to be satisfied, and you're not going to hit all your nutrient requirements. Personally, I feel like my cooking style has improved since being vegetarian. I try a lot more diverse things, like there's a lot more variety, a lot more flavoring, and I also like to cook things from different cultures. I love cooking like Indian food and Lebanese food and all of these things that have a lot more vegetarian options than like French cuisine. And now we're going to go into the second group of mistakes that new vegetarians often make, and that is being too extreme. So a very common mistake that I see a lot of vegetarians make is that they automatically equate being vegetarian to being healthy. Still today, I will get people telling me like, oh, you must be so healthy, you must eat just like salad all the time, because that's what they think vegetarianism is. And it's not. We all know it's not. So you're not automatically going to be eating healthy just because you're vegetarian. So make sure that you still plan out your meals correctly and make sure that you're getting a bunch of nutrients. Another common mistake when it comes to new vegetarians is that they are unable to find a middle ground when it comes to protein. So protein is, of course, a very important macronutrient. You need to be getting enough protein every day in order to have enough amino acids because your body cannot store protein. So you definitely need to make sure that you're getting a good intake of protein. But from my perspective, what I see a lot is that people will either obsess over protein, like new vegetarians will be like obsessively tracking their protein content and making sure that they're getting like complementary protein sources and making sure that they're hitting like really high protein numbers. Or new vegetarians will just disregard protein, just like take the meat away and not change anything about their meal. And that's not good either. Neither of them are good. There's also a misconception that you can never have like one source of protein as a vegetarian, that you need to associate different kinds. And this isn't like false, but it's like kind of an old way of viewing things. And from what we know now, there is protein in every single food. So just making sure that you're having like a wide variety of foods throughout the day will ensure that you hit complementary amino acid profiles and that you get the correct protein content. Of course, if you're only eating like one source of protein and like that's it, that's like your sole food throughout the day, then that's gonna be a little hard. But if you are eating just balanced meals, you're not gonna have trouble with that. Make sure that you are including legumes like beans, lentils, chickpeas, hummus, all of these things. Make sure that you are having soy and like soy-based foods like tofu. A lot of whole grains that contain higher levels of protein as well. Quinoa is one that people kind of obsess about, but like whole wheat pasta has more protein than quinoa. So make sure that you are getting a good mix of all of these grains as well. And there's protein in nuts as well. They have a fat content that is high, so don't use them as your sole source of protein, but again, it's a good idea to have them a little bit in your diet. And as a vegetarian, at least the way that we see it in like Western countries, you can eat eggs on a vegetarian diet and dairy, and that definitely has protein as well. If you want to know more about protein and specifically plant protein, you can check out the video I made about it here or in the description. And another issue that new vegetarians just can't seem to find a middle ground with is concerning plant-based meat alternatives. I see these two extremes a lot. It's either vegetarians will say, I just replaced all of my meat with fake meat and I'm good to go. Or new vegetarians will say, I ban these processed foods, they are bad, I need to be eating like only whole foods. Obviously the right approach is the one in the middle, where it just like promotes balance, where you are able to have certain like meat alternatives once in a while because they are very helpful when you are transitioning, when you are like a new vegetarian. You could be having like a little bit more at first, and that way it's much easier. You can just like make all of your favorite recipes and just use like plant-based meat. But of course, if you are being vegetarian also for like the health aspect, it is a good idea to include more whole foods and more plant-based sources of protein like legumes. For instance, I make a lasagna recipe that I used to make with like vegan meat, which I still use vegan meat, it's delicious, but I used to like make it exclusively with that, and now I switched it over to lentils and I actually like it even better, and I'm just getting more fiber, more whole foods in. So if you want to check out that recipe, I actually have a recipe video of me cooking it right here if you're interested, or in the description. I would say the ideal approach would be to have like soy-based products and like lentils and other legumes and whole grains, let's say like the better part of your week. I would say the right balance would be to have like 2 to 3 meals where you have like mainly whole foods and whole plant-based sources of protein, to the ratio of like 2 to 3 meals like that, and then 1 meal where you have some sort of like meat alternative, like Beyond Meat or like vegan chicken nuggets or something like that. This is a very common mistake that new vegetarians make, and I was the first one to make this mistake, and it is to be too judgmental of others. I understand if you're becoming vegetarian or vegan for ethical reasons that it just baffles you why people still continue to eat animals, but you have to really be careful and not judge other people for like their own choices, because that will really isolate you from other people and also like give all vegetarians and vegans a bad image. So don't do that. You also have to understand that being vegetarian or vegan comes from a place of privilege, because if you are worried about what you're going to feed your like 8 kids on a very low salary, then you're not going to be worried about whether it's animal products or not. Let's be honest. So you can talk about your opinions, of course, and I'm the first one to debate anyone if they start to debate me about vegetarianism, but you have to do so in a way that is kind and respectful and non-judgmental, and that's how you're actually gonna get like more people to stop eating meat, not by criticizing their choices. You also absolutely don't need to be expecting immediate perfection when you start becoming vegetarian. If you feel like it's better for you to just like stop everything and like ban all meat and like fish and seafood from your house and just become vegetarian instantly, then well, I don't think that that's like the best approach. But if you feel like you need to do it that way, sure, but please don't be too hard on yourself and don't expect perfection from the start. You are going to mess up in the sense that you are gonna eat stuff that is like not vegetarian, that you forgot about or you like didn't know about, or you know, stuff like that is gonna happen. And you are also going to have meals that are not like very balanced, or meals that you don't really enjoy, or just like awkward situations when it comes to being vegetarian, especially when you're eating like with other people or out in like a social setting. And all of this is totally okay. Don't put too much pressure on yourself to be perfect. And remember as well that if you can't be 100% vegetarian, that's also totally fine. It's much better for the planet and the animals and your health even that you are like 90-95% vegetarian, and that sometimes you have like animal foods, rather than being like, okay, since I can't be vegetarian 100%, I'm just gonna like have all the animal foods I want. Be kind with yourself, take it slow, and you don't have to put like a label on yourself immediately. You can kind of try and see where things go, try different things out, and like learn from there. And finally, the last mistake that new vegetarians make is that they sometimes lose sight of food pleasure. Food is supposed to be enjoyed, and you are supposed to see vegetarianism as something positive, an opportunity for you to eat maybe in a way that is healthier for your body and that supports certain ethical decisions, or like environmental, for animal reasons, whatever. There are a bunch of reasons, but it has to stay something positive. It can't be something that you like wake up every day and feel horrible that you are burdened to do that. If that's the way that you feel, that is very restrictive, and that is not good for your relationship with food or for your overall health. So make sure that you are enjoying food, enjoying all the vegetarian options available, making a little game out of it to see which recipes you can turn vegetarian and which restaurants have like the best vegetarian options, and how you can like complement everything to make a very like nutritionally adequate meal that you also like. See it like that, and not as restriction or something that is being taken away from you, because that's really sad. That's not what it is. It's still a great pleasure to eat as a vegetarian. That's it for this video. I hope that you enjoyed it and that it was helpful. If you did, don't forget to like it and subscribe, and see you on my next one. Bye.